YouTube gave me a hard time with the first video and gave me a little bit of slack with the second, so let's hope with a volume cover like this, the third volume doesn't get flagged or taken down by the YouTube police. For those who are new, Psycho-Pass is a horror anthology series about a police officer named Itetsu trying to find his parents' killer. His police department has a special division led by Hidaka. With his supernatural powers, he sends Itetsu back in time to try to reduce the number of victims in serial killer cases. Last time, Itetsu had just solved the brainwashing puppeteer case and is now heavily suspicious of Hidaka's actions. So today, let's go ahead and just get straight into the non-English territory of this series and dive into the next case. Itetsu, after dealing with the brainwashing puppeteer, begins studying the early lives of various serial killers just in case something like that incident ever happens again. Meanwhile, Hidaka leaves the room to handle some important business. Suspicious of Hidaka and questioning whether he's hiding his true intentions regarding the murder mysteries, Itetsu stops what he's doing and decides to follow him. Trailing Hidaka through the city, Itetsu watches as he just visits a bookstore, an arcade, and a spa, seemingly just slacking off. Then, Hidaka glances at a store and checks his pocket watch. At that moment, a hooded figure steps out. Itetsu instantly recognizes him as the man who once held him at gunpoint and immediately gives chase. The hooded man runs towards a subway station attempting to escape by train, but Itetsu manages to catch up and tackle him. Ripping off the man's hood and cap, he demands to know if Hidaka sent him. However, the man appears genuinely confused. He doesn't know who Hidaka is. Suspicious, Itetsu rummages through the man's backpack and discovers a bomb. The man attempts to press the detonator, but before he can, Hidaka swiftly snatches it away. The police arrive and then arrest the bomber. As they take him into custody, Itetsu confronts Hidaka, questioning if the bomber was working for him. Hidaka takes offense at the accusation, insisting that he will never be in a league with a criminal. Itetsu then asks about the important business he was supposedly handling, but Hidaka simply replies that it's already concluded. On the ground, Itetsu notices a serial killer card, one of Hidaka's signature items, detailing the bomber's crimes. The description states that the man had bombed a subway, killing 89 people. Later, in a secluded alleyway, Hidaka meets with the hooded figure, instructing him to keep a close watch on Itetsu. That night, Hidaka sits alone in his serial killer collection room, surrounded by skulls with X's carved in their foreheads. He quietly declares that Itetsu will be the one to end his serial killing. The next morning, Itetsu confronts Hidaka about the serial killer card. He points out the fact that since the bomber had no criminal record, how could Hidaka have possibly known about his crimes? There are only two possibilities. Either the bomber was working under Hidaka, or Hidaka can somehow see into the future. Hidaka simply laughs it off, dismissing the idea that he possesses such a power. He claims that the card was nothing more than a joke. Choosing not to press the issue further, Itetsu changes the subject and requests that Hidaka sent him to investigate the 41 murders on Tatsunami Island. The case is infamous, a brutal massacre that took place on an isolated island in 2004. The culprit, Kusaba Kurihito, known as the Smothering Berserker, had moved to the island a year before the incident. Unable to get along with the islanders, he eventually snapped, using various deadly weapons to slaughter 41 people. Itetsu specifically chose this case because Kusaba was notorious for chopping up his victims and then forming them into giant human meatballs, eerily similar to the fate of Itetsu's own family. Hidaka reminds Itetsu that his family was murdered in 2010, yet Kusaba had been executed a year prior in 2009. However, the truth surrounding these events remains shrouded in darkness. That's why Itetsu intends to confront Kusaba directly, to ask him why he made human meatballs out of his victims. Hidaka offers a final warning. Kusaba, an ex-SDF officer, is far more dangerous than any criminal Itetsu has faced before. With a smirk, he wishes Itetsu good luck, raises his hand in the shape of a gun, aims it at his forehead, and bang. Itetsu arrives on a boat at Tatsuyami Island, inhabiting the body of 18-year-old Kiyokawa Asa. She and her friends from the same college tennis circle, Tomoki, Yuri, and Mo, visited the island under the impression that they were going to a resort. Instead, they were tricked into helping the chores at Tomoki's grandmother's house. As they feast, Tomoki's grandmother informs them that they are free to explore the island, but she warns them to stay away from the house on the island's outskirts. A man named Kusaba moved there, and rumors suggest that he is a murderer who fled to the island. However, she assures them that there's no need to worry and advises them to rest up for the work that they'll do in the morning. The next morning, Asa plans to investigate Kusaba's house. However, as he enters the woods, he senses a murderous intent watching him. Though he cannot pinpoint its source, unbeknownst to him, Kusaba is already stalking him from the shadows. The next morning, while Asa enjoys some breakfast, the chief of the island, Koneda, arrives with his wife, Minako, and son, Masayo. In the future, all three of them will be killed by Kusaba, and their bodies taken to a cave behind their home. Koneda is the key to solving this entire case. Koneda gives the group a tour of the island, showing them the vast flower field, the modern houses on the hill, and even his own home. According to Kusaba's murder route, he avoided the old homes and went straight for the hill where the modern houses were located. His true motives were never revealed, but he may have held a grudge against the chief's family. Wanting answers, Asa blatantly asks Koneda if he had ever had a dispute with Kusaba. Before Koneda could respond, Minako panics, claiming that she has seen Kusaba walking around at night and screaming in the caves behind their house. She runs away in distress. Masayo, in an attempt to lighten the mood, introduces himself to Asa, Yuri, and Mo, and invites them to the beach. While they go and have some fun, Asa secretly watches Kusaba leave his house. The house is covered in graffiti with words like murderer, sin, and death penalty. Asa sneaks inside, searching for incriminating evidence before things spiral out of control. He finds a pig's corpse and an arsenal of deadly weapons, the same ones that he used in the massacre. He takes pictures for evidence and attempts to turn them into the police, hoping that Kusaba doesn't have a gun license for any of these guns. However, Kusaba is already watching him from the woods. At the police station, the officer is hesitant, but Asa's persistence convinces him to call his superior. However, the phone line is dead. In fact, all of the phone lines on the island have been cut. This wasn't in the original timeline, meaning Itetsu's presence may have just changed history. The islanders, led by Koneda's brother Koji, immediately blame Kusaba and rally to attack him. However, when they storm his house, Kusaba is gone, and so are his guns. At the beach, Mo steps away to use the bathroom. While she is alone, Kusaba grabs her from behind and begins to choke her out. Tomoki arrives and then yells at him to let her go. At that moment, the search party at Kusaba's house hears gunshots and rushes outside. Tomoki emerges with a cut on his arm, claiming Kusaba shot him at the beach and that Mo is in danger. Moments later, Masayo and Yuri arrive, with Masayo carrying an unconscious Mo in his hands. However, Itetsu is confused. Why would Kusaba attack Mo instead of any of the islanders? Meanwhile, Yuri demands to leave the island immediately, but the boat won't return for another 3 days. Masayo promises to protect them at the chief's house, while Koji leads the hunt for Kusaba. Asa, knowing the chief's house isn't safe, tries to warn them against staying there but can't explain why without exposing himself. As a result, the group ignores the warning and heads straight to the chief's house. There, tensions rise, Yuri blaming Tomoki for bringing them to the island, but Masayo defends him, arguing that he didn't know about Kusaba. Masayo then leaves to join the hunt for Kusaba. Deep in the woods, the search party finally spots him staring at them. They charge after him. As night falls, Kusaba's traps begin picking off the search party members one by one. He corners the police officer, ready to strike until Asa drops from a tree and kicks him in the head. The officer then gets caught in a pitfall trap, and Kusaba suddenly appears behind Asa. Asa tries to flip him over, but her body lacked the strength. Kusaba swiftly picks her up and then puts her in a headlock. Just then, Masayo appears and swings a sword at Kusaba, but Kusaba counters it with a butcher knife, stabbing Masayo in the head, killing him instantly. Asa regains consciousness, tied up in Kusaba's hideout. He watches in horror as Kusaba butchers Masayo's corpse, molding his remains into a grotesque human meatball. Meanwhile, in the present, Asa finds herself in Itetsu's body as Hidaka explains the situation to her. He tells her to relax until he returns, but Asa isn't there for a vacation or to work. She has another reason for coming to Tatsunami Island. Back in the past, Kusaba was sound asleep. Asa spots an axe nearby and quietly begins cutting his restraints. While searching for an escape route, he notices weapons lining the walls and a picture of the massive flower field from the tour. Suddenly, Kusaba appears behind them. He grabs a knife and tries to stab him, but he catches it. Thinking quickly, he grabs the axe and smashes the only light source, plunging the room into darkness. He makes a break for it, but Kusaba grabs him and then pulls him down. Just then, a trap door bursts open and a rabid dog lunges at Kusaba, biting his arm. Koji stands above the trapdoor, shouting at Asa to climb the ladder. Once he reaches the top, Koji frantically asks if Masayo is down there. Asa silently shakes his head. The dog whimpers. Koji looks down just in time to see Kusaba aiming a gun at him. Kusaba fires, but Asa tackles Koji out of the way, warning him that Kusaba is a veteran soldier and a trained killer. With no choice, the group withdraws. At the chief's house, Asa tells Kuneda and Minako that Masayo is dead, and that Kusaba is coming for them next. Kuneda demands to know how she knows all of this. Asa reveals the horrifying truth, that the 41-person massacre is about to begin. While changing clothes, Asa finds a postcard of the flower field, the same image from Kusaba's hideout. On the back of the postcard, he sees a name, Yae. In the present, Hidaka asks why Asa really came to the island. She confesses she came to find somebody, her sister. Asa explains that her sister had lived alone for 6 years. A year ago, she sent Asa a postcard, and that was the last time they ever spoke. Recognizing the flower field, she decided to search for her in the island. She asks Hidaka if her sister was a victim of the massacre. Hidaka reveals that she wasn't, but she may have just been murdered before the massacre. Back in the past, Asa stands in the middle of the flower field when Kusaba appears, armed to the teeth. As he charges straight at him, the police officer intervenes, declaring that as a law enforcer, he cannot let anyone on the island commit murder. He fires his gun, and the search party arrives to find Asa and the officer standing over Kusaba's bleeding body. The officer is hailed as a hero. However, Itetsu feels uneasy. He wishes he could have acted sooner. But at least the massacre appears to have been stopped. That night, the chief apologizes for everything that they have endured, and invites them all to a farewell party. Tomorrow the boat will come to take them home, so to honor Masayo and their dog Max, the group raises their glass. However, as they drink, the police officer suddenly collapses. One by one, Mo, Yuri, and Asa begin to lose consciousness. As their vision fades, Kuneda, Koji, and Tomoki glare at them with sinister expressions. In the cave behind the chief's house, a group of islanders sit around the unconscious bodies of Mo, Yuri, and Asa, while Kuneda stands tall as their leader with fruits and animals hanging behind them. Kuneda announces that the offerings are ready and that the party can officially begin. For a year and a half, a great disaster named Kusaba had plagued them after accidentally witnessing their divine banquet. A secret ceremony that only the Kuneda family, who had ruled the island for generations, was allowed to know about. The banquet was what brought peace to the island, and that peace was threatened when Kusaba attempted to reveal its secret. To counter this, Kaneda spread the rumor that Kusaba was a murderer, isolating him and driving him off the island. However, this plan backfired, leading to Masayo's murder. They didn't really expect Kusaba to actually kill someone, and them cutting the phone lines had also backfired. However, none of that mattered now, as Kusaba was dead. Last year, due to Kusaba's interference, the offerings had not satisfied the god of the island. Thankfully, due to Tomoki, they had now prepared 3 young and beautiful offerings. Previously, the offerings had been people who had left home or contemplated suicide, but this time, Kuneda planned to blame the deaths of the 3 offerings on Kusaba. As they prepared to cut Asa open and extract their organs, he suddenly kicked an islander in the face, revealing that he, Mo, and Yuri had only been pretending to be unconscious. When Asa had gone to change his clothes earlier, he had warned Mo and Yuri that the chief would spike their drinks, explaining that the islanders were the true murderers. Asa had found Kusaba's actions odd. When he killed Masayo, there was no hesitation. Yet, he hadn't attempted to kill him or Mo when he had the perfect opportunity. Kusaba's only goal was to kill the Kuneda family and end the banquet. When Asa was in the flowery field, She had recalled the meaning of the flowers from a memory with his mother. The flowers symbolized, "I dedicate my life." Everyone who wore the crown of flowers had been turned into offerings, including last year when Asa's sister, Yae, had been sacrificed. Tomoki admitted that it wasn't a coincidence that he brought Asa on the trip. As for Mo and Yuri, he had simply thought that they were really easy to deceive. He then pulled out a pistol and aimed it at Asa, revealing that his gunshot wound had been self-inflicted. Asa tells him to cancel the banquet, but Koji then pulls out his shotgun and threatened to kill her. However, Asa remained calm, stating that they can't kill him since he is an offering, and if they don't cancel the party, then Kuwasaba would come after them. Suddenly, Kuwasaba appears right behind Kuneta and aimed his shotgun at him. However, Asa stopped him, insisting that no one else needed to die. Instead, he took him hostage. Back at the flowery field, it was revealed that the officer had shot into the air to avoid hitting Asa, who had been protecting Kuwasaba. Asa showed Kuwasaba the postcard found in his bag, left there by her sister, revealing to him that she was Yae's younger sister. Kuwasaba pulled out his own postcard with Yae's name written on the back. Asa put the pieces together and realized that Yae and Kuwasaba had been lovers. In the present, Asa explained that they had planned to run away together, but her parents had opposed the relationship and forced them to break up. Yae had gone to the island to heal her broken heart, which was why Kuwasaba had gone after her. However, Hideko revealed that Asa's theory was not entirely correct. Kuwasaba had been expelled from the Japanese self-defense force after he had punched a superior to death for bullying his subordinates. He wasn't the one who killed Yae. It had been the wealthy Kuneta family. Back at the flower field, Asa asked if Kuwasaba wanted revenge on the Kuneta family. Suddenly, Kuwasaba remembered the moment he had walked into the banquet and witnessed Yae being sacrificed by the islanders. After the banquet, a meatball had appeared in front of the shrine, and upon closer inspection, Kuwasaba realized that it was Yae's remains. Asa urged him to remain calm, insisting that killing wasn't the solution. Instead, they will expose the family's sins. But first, Kuwasaba had to fake his death. He pulled out a knife and stabbed himself in the chest. Asa later explained to the police officer that his name was actually Itetsu, and that he was from the future. In the cave, Asa questioned why the islanders turned the sacrifices into giant meatballs. Koji explained that they left the offering meatballs in front of the shrine so that pigs and birds will eat the remains and spread them around the island through their waste, thus continuing the circle of life. Koji, having had enough of the threats, along with the rest of the family, stood up to Asa, ready to kill them and Kuneta. Suddenly, the police officer appeared, tossing his gun to Asa. Asa then aims his gun at Koji and Tomoki. He shot both of their weapons away. Kuwasaba then kicks the chief away, and the group runs off. Koji reveals that the boat won't be coming for them until the next day, but the islanders mentioned that Kuwasaba had a boat nearby. As Kuwasaba and the group run, he stops due to his chest wound hurting. Using this information, Asa quickly devises a plan. Koji and his family chase them but finds a bloody rag and a trail leading towards the beach. As they approach a rowboat, they fire at what they thought was Kuwasaba's body, only to realize that it was a decoy. In the distance, Asa, Kuwasaba, and the others escape on Kuneta's yacht. Once they reach land, they plan to expose the Kuneta's family's crimes, and Kuwasaba would turn himself in for Masayo's murder. Meanwhile, the Kuneta family sulk as two men in business suits appear behind them, aiming their guns at them. Koji wondered when their sacred banquet had turned into a money-making tool just before they were all gunned down. Asa began to suspect that Kuwasaba hadn't been the one who killed his parents, but the true culprit had likely come from the island. Suddenly, a helicopter flies above them, leaving the island. As the group are distracted, Kuneta's wife, Minako, then appears and attempts to stab Asa, but Kuwasaba took the blow instead. He grabbed her and then throws her overboard, leaving her to drown. He then collapses and dies from his injuries. All while this is happening, Asa passes out. When she awakes, she was confused and saw Kuwasaba's lifeless body on the boat. Realizing that she had returned to her own body, she placed her crown of flowers on Kuwasaba, wishing him happiness with her sister in heaven. Itetsu awakes back in his original body, with Hideko waiting for him in the dark. Hideko poured him a drink to celebrate, but Itetsu blames himself for Kurosawa's death, believing that if he had paid closer attention, things might have just turned out differently. Hideka then shows him a newspaper article stating that 35 people had been killed in the mass shooting, with Tomoki being the reported killer. The article claimed that Tomoki had requested more money due to his gambling debts, and after being rejected, he had used a machine gun to kill 35 people, including the chief, before turning the gun on himself. The mission was technically a success, but Itetsu knew that Tomoki had been framed. By whom? He didn't know yet. The Kuneta family had likely gained their wealth through organ trafficking, and when they failed, their associates had eliminated them. Hideka wanted to know more about what had happened, but Itetsu withheld the information, beginning to lose his trust in him. Later, Itetsu and his sister visited their family's grave. His sister asked if he had become a police officer because of their father. He admitted that that was probably true, since his father and his grandfather were also police officers. She then explained that being a police officer has their scary moments. She recalled a time when she had seen a man searching through their father's desk. The man had noticed her and tried to attack, but their father had charged in and punched him away. Their father asked her if they could keep this situation a secret. She remembered the man having a small scar on his hand. So the next day, Itetsu searched for anybody on the island who may have possibly had such a scar, but found no one. Hideka approached him, telling him that he was searching way too hard. Itetsu, however, vowed that the next time he would solve the case without any more victims. The case ended with Hideka handing Itetsu a new serial killer card, one involving victims whose body had been found in grotesque disfigured states. But the most interesting detail about this was that the killer was never caught. The Kurosawa case at first glance didn't really seem that special or interesting, but later down the line it was pretty entertaining in my opinion. However, this might have been one of the worst cases of this series. The idea of Kurosawa being a veteran and probably one of the most deranged and dangerous criminals we'll see was a great tension setter. The giant meatball aspect of the case was also really interesting. It feels like that we're finally starting to get closer to solving Itetsu's parents' death. But even outside the case, everything revolving around Itetsu and Hideka is always super interesting, and every time we learn something new about Hideka, the more my theories just get thrown out the window and just ponder on what's going to happen next and what could his true intentions possibly be. Not only that, but the amount of really important details that we get in this arc is actually insane. This arc is filled with huge pieces of this puzzle, like the meatball scenario, the secret organ organization, the mysterious man that Itetsu's sister saw, and just so many clues that were just thrown at us in just one arc. Only one arc. It's amazing. Again, it feels like that we're getting super close to actually solving this whole mystery, getting closer to the actual end of the series. I like this case, but like I said in the beginning, it was definitely one of my least favorites. My listing, by the way, is the Mama's Boy case at first place, the hospital at second place, this case at third place, and then the school one in last place. If you guys have a different listing, then let me know in the comments below actually. The problems I did have with this case is definitely a huge one for me, and that is the predictability and the mystery behind the entire case. It seemed pretty obvious that it was the actual islanders and the Koeneta family that was a part of the whole thing. I think around when Itetsu was explaining Kurosawa's kill route was when I figured out that he actually wasn't who he seemed. And then obviously there were a bunch of other details that basically pointed at Kurosawa is not really the bad guy. I think if you're going to have a mystery, I don't think you should make the answer super easy to figure out. Even mystery series that are targeted towards children like Scooby-Doo gives kids really good mysteries so they could use their problem solving and thinking skills and also their observation skills to try to solve the mysteries on their own. However, this series is targeted towards adults, or at least older teenagers, so I don't know why you gotta make a mystery super easy. It kind of feels like that this arc was supposed to be like a little filler just so they can cram in all of the important details that affect the overall story. But by doing that, it just affects the overall case. Now, the connection between Asa and Kurosawa being in-laws was actually pretty good. I didn't expect that at all, but it was the only thing other than the businessmen showing up that actually really shocked me. I also didn't really care for like any of the side characters. The police officer wasn't that interesting. Mo and Yuri were just there, and Tomoki was actually the only twist that got me, only because I didn't think he was actually related to the family. However, it did become really apparent that he was a part of the whole situation once we saw that he had a cut instead of a gun wound on his arm. Also, I'm so done with Itetsu just playfooting around with this should I hide my real identity thing or not. When I mentioned it for the other cases, it was mainly just a goof, a joke that bro doesn't really know how to adapt to situations, or that he's basically just asking people to basically find him in the future and just kill him. But here, he simply just slips up way too many times. There was a literal time where they were talking about Masayo dying, and Itetsu just straight up tells them about the 41 massacres that are going to happen. Even in the beginning, where he just straight up interrogates the chief by asking if he has had any disputes with Kuwasaba. Like, dude, you're not even trying to hide it at this point. As to theories on what I think is going to be happening next, I do think that the next case will definitely be one of my favorites, as it is going to be mainly focused on actual mysteries and trying to solve the actual killer. This is the first time where we're going to see a case where the serial killer hasn't actually been caught, and now we're going to be put into the test if we could actually find out who it is. As for Hidaka, I have no idea what he's doing. I really thought he was building up the Avengers of time traveling serial killers, but apparently he's leading Itetsu to eventually take him down like he's Lelouch from Code Geass. I also think that this is a stretch, but I think it's either going to be Hidaka or a time traveling Itetsu who broke into Itetsu's home. It is very, very complicated to explain. I feel like either Hidaka just doesn't age and he broke into Itetsu's house to get information because maybe his father also worked for that same division before dying. And the reason why he got chopped up into a giant meatball was because he knew too much, and Hidaka was actually responsible for Itetsu's parents' death. That could be a really cool twist. Or it could be a time traveling Itetsu. Now, the thing about this is that Itetsu doesn't actually ever time travel in his own body. He always time travels into somebody else's body. So this could be, again, a very, very deep stretch. Again, it is very, very complicated. I'll probably have like a discussion with you guys in the comments about it in more detail. But I do think Hidaka is doing some really, really shady stuff, and that this new organization is going to be appearing and being connected to these later cases. But I am very, very excited to check out this new arc. And thank you guys for watching this video. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Remember to join the Discord server. The link will be in the description below. And if you guys like horror manga videos like this one, then why not scroll down and hit that subscribe button. But I'll be seeing you guys in the next video.